Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first preseason for the Seattle Seahawks and new head coach Nick Halden here on Madden 22. In this video, we're going to be going over some talking points for the franchise while watching some offensive highlights from our first preseason. The biggest talking points for this franchise is obviously going to be how the team looks without stars Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner on the team this year. Will they be able to fill these holes, or will they be left behind by the NFC West as they seem to get better and better every year? So without further ado, welcome to the Seattle Seahawks franchise on Madden 22. We will get started with the biggest change that the Seahawks made over the offseason. We will have a new man under center for us this season. The Seattle Seahawks sent Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos and in return received quarterback Drew Lock, tight end Noah Fant, and defensive end Shelby Harris. I do not have Madden 23, so we will only have those three players. None of the draft picks came over in the trade on these rosters, so that will present an interesting challenge for us Seahawks to work with going forward. Starting it off with Drew Lock. He is expected to be the starting quarterbacks for the Seahawks this season. We are already looking for potential improvements that we could make to the quarterback room, but for the time being, Drew Lock is our man. Lock never was really given a proper chance in Denver, but it could be different here in Seattle. Will Drew Lock be our franchise quarterback, or will he just be a quick stop on the road to rebuilding the Seattle Seahawks into the NFC West powerhouse that they once were? We hope that Drew Lock could be the guy, but we are also prepared for him to not be the quarterback that we hope he can be for us. Another talking point for this Seahawks franchise is how is the offense going to look as a scheme now? Russell Wilson had a unique skill set that made him very difficult to plan for, and the hopes is that we can find a quarterback with a very similar, if not better, skill set to be the next Russell Wilson for us. Drew Lock has shown glimpses in college that he could be that man, but has not shown it yet in his time in the NFL. So hopefully he can be that role for us. Another new addition from the trade is tight end Noah Fant, and this is a player that I am excited for. Noah Fant, being the big ol' Iowa boy, really has some traits that makes him dynamic in the tight end role. He showcases great receiving talent, but also he is a very underrated blocker. His size makes him a threat in the red zone, and we will look to exploit matchups in the red zone that we can get him in. Putting Noah Fant up with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf has a recipe for great success. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are matchup nightmares in their own rights, so having Noah Fant be that extra thing for them to worry about can really put a stress on defenses, and hopefully one of them can draw enough pressure that the other ones can slip away. Building off the wide receiver core of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, we do not really have a lot of depth outside of them. So one of the building points for this team will be to find more talent to improve that room. DK Metcalf is a physical specimen that he has already made a name for himself in the league. His size, his speed, his route running has already made him one of the best young wide receivers in the league. With that being said, Tyler Lockett is nothing to slouch about. Lockett is a very dynamic player who I think we can find a way to utilize in more ways to make him that much more of a threat. The first thought for Lockett is getting him in more sweep plays, getting him in more end-arounds, maybe even some screens or motions to definitely get him in situations where he will get mismatches and make plays for us when needed. Switching to the defensive side of the ball, it is still an area that we could use improvement on. With Bobby Wagner leaving the Seahawks this past offseason, the last member of the Legion of Boom is officially gone from the team. How are we going to replace Bobby Wagner and his Hall of Fame bound resume? One of the thoughts to replace Bobby Wagner is an idea going around the NFL a lot recently, which is position by committee. If we do not have the guy to replace Bobby Wagner, we will definitely have multiple guys that can perform different roles, and we will find the best ways to utilize them in each situation to make sure that we're getting the best out of our players. One thing that we can be sure about is we definitely have a guy at safety for us. Jamal Adams, a hard-hitting strong safety that can be a play-disrupting machine. Everyone calls him Blitz Boy. I'm going to call him team captain for us because he has the veteran presence and the skill set to make plays for this defense. Jamal Adams loves playing close to the line as he is not the best in coverage, so we will definitely look to utilize him in situations where he can be successful. Fortunately for him, we have a very good person to pair up with him in the secondary in Quandre Diggs. With Adam's skill set and Diggs' skill set, we will be running a lot of single high safeties in center field. We love that idea because Diggs is skilled enough to not only fulfill those needs and fill that role, but thrive in it. Another key point that we need to improve is our defensive line, and with the addition of Shelby Harris, we have done just that. Shelby Harris is a big man who can make play in the trenches, and that is exactly what we're going to need him to do. With the offense being an uncertain factor going forward, we're going to need all the help we can get from the defensive side of the ball, and that will start with controlling the pace of the game. If we can control the trenches up front, we can control the game, and we can put ourselves in situations to be successful. League sources are also talking about a possible reunion between veteran cornerback Richard Sherman and the Seattle Seahawks. Sherman, best known for being one of the main players in the Legion of Boom in the Seahawks' time of success. If Sherman could bring his veteran skills and talent to the defense, we could definitely put ourselves in situations that our younger corners and secondary players would have more time to develop before being called up to be getting big time playing time. Before we get to the next part of this team rebuild, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Do you think there are any other players that we have on this roster that we can definitely build around, or are there any players that you think we should go out and get that could be difference makers for this team? Transitioning towards more of the money and future side of the team, this is something that the Seahawks have two very different ends of. In terms of draft capital for this upcoming season, we do not have much. We are still missing our first round pick from the Jamal Adams trade, and that is definitely something that will hurt us. But what the Seattle Seahawks lack in draft capital, we make up in cap space. As of right now, as the preseason is being filmed, the Seahawks have over $100 million in cap space. Now, there are players that we're going to have to re-sign during the season, and I will be sure to show the deals we negotiate and the players we let walk and the players we re-sign, because that $100 million is our greatest tool to build this team with. Obviously, right now, we do not see how contract negotiations are going with star players and their teams, but we can definitely say that we will be aggressive because, like we said, we do not want this rebuild to take a while for the Seattle Seahawks. So now let's talk about the expectations that we have for this franchise. Obviously, we would not want to be rebuilding for long, but if it happens, it happens. I am dedicated to bringing these Seattle Seahawks back to the level that they once were at in the NFC West. Being realistic about this first season, it is not going to look good for the Denver Broncos. Drew Lock has very questionable stats, and we do not know how he will perform going forward for us. We are considering trades at the moment already. I did do a little bit of looking around and I found some deals that were interesting, but ultimately nothing that I wanted to pull the trigger on just yet. I want to give Drew Lock at least 3 weeks to show me what he has as our starting quarterback. I feel that 3 weeks is a good sample size that we will see enough ups and downs to make a decision. Now, that obviously does not mean that at week 3 he is 100% gone, but if he shows enough that to me that he is worth keeping around and continuing to develop, we will definitely keep Drew Lock. But at the same time, if he struggles even remotely, I am more than prepared to make a trade for a player that I view has more of an upside in the long-term future of this team. As for the receivers, I feel that DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett will definitely be our quarterbacks of the future. I do not see us finding a deal for either of them that would be worth it to get rid of. But that being said, we are rebuilding, so we are listening to absolutely any trade offer that we get. I will not put them on the trade block, but definitely I will make sure that if we are looking to expand our team, that those players, if the deal is absolutely great, is something that we will consider throwing in. And for the defensive side of the ball, Jamal Adams is the only player that I view has a lot of great trade value right now. And who knows, we might be willing to part ways with him. Although I do not want to, because he is a great player and he definitely can be a play disruptor. But if we can get a great deal in return, I think we could pull the trigger on it. The last thought that I have for this video is what to do with the special teams unit. Now, obviously, we want dynamic players to be returning our kicks and punts, but the problem is they take a lot of extra hits, and if we have an extremely dynamic player, would we rather have him participating in the offense and defense in ways that they can make an impact there? One of the best ideas that I had is we have no first round pick this year, so our second round pick, depending on where we finish the season might not be that impactful of a player. But if we can definitely find a wide receiver or a running back in the second round that can kind of fill the role for us of the special teams expert, that would definitely be an impactful pick. Another awesome thing about special teams is it gives reps and experience to players that they can then use to develop and possibly work their way into the starting role of the team. As you can see on the screen here, our offense does have a few stars on it, and even DK Metcalf, the X Factor superstar. But going forward, we are going to definitely want to improve our offensive line. As you can see right away, our left tackle is only a 58 overall, so that is definitely something we are going to look to improve on actively in this season. But with that being said, let's switch down over to the defensive side of the ball, where we do have a lot of players that we can make plays with, but we want to have more depth. Red flag for me is that our cornerback 1 is only a 78 overall with normal development. We're going to want someone like Coleman who can hopefully develop into that cornerback 1 role, but we want someone who will be able to level up and gain enough experience and develop enough to be the cornerback 1 to match the ever-growing talent that a lot of these teams have at wide receiver. So that is it. That is our roster and our goals for this season. Tell me what you guys think down below in the comments. I do believe that the Seattle Seahawks can become what they once were, and I do think that Coach Nick Halden will make the decisions necessary to bring the team back to where they were. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will have the next video of the first game of Season 1 of the Seattle Seahawks coming to you guys soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.